So for those that don't know me, my name's Claire. I'm a multi-business owner. I am founder of the Good Vibes Collective, and I've been in network marketing and community and team building for over 20 years now. Tonight's episode is going to be looking at something that many, if not all of us, have struggled with at some point, and that's imposter syndrome. It's that feeling of, who am I to do this thing, or I'm not good enough to be here, or it's that little voice that whispers that somebody's going to find out that you've got no idea what you're doing. And we're going to look at where that voice comes from. We're going to look at why it shows up, and we're going to look at some tools that we can use to quiet that voice down a little bit, because it's not telling you the truth. It's just your brain being protective, and it does get slightly annoying. So, imposter syndrome is that inner belief that something isn't deserved, or that we're somehow faking things, or that people are overestimating your ability. And it's a psychological pattern that happens. It's often down to the way that our brain processes success versus self-belief. If something goes wrong, we tend to take full responsibility for it, and we tell ourselves that it was our fault. And when something goes right, we're quick to explain it away. So it was just luck, or anybody could have done that. And when we do succeed, instead of celebrating, our mind searches for reasons that we shouldn't be proud. And it's because we're not used to seeing success as a normal thing. When you add in social media and looking at everybody's highlight reel and their best bits that are constantly in your face, because that's all that people tend to share on social media, it's no wonder we feel like we don't measure up. In reality, imposter syndrome is not proof that we're not good enough. It's proof that we are human and that we care about doing things well, and that we're stretching beyond our comfort zone. And the funny thing is, it often tends to affect people who are actually very capable, people who set high standards for themselves, who care, and who are constantly learning and improving. So first, I want to have a little look at what's happening behind the scenes. So it's the science bit, and you will have seen this image multiple times. And basically, your amygdala, which is part of your brain that is responsible for fear and survival, is trying to protect you from a perceived danger. So in ancient times, if you were rejected by your tribe, then that was potentially life-threatening. And your brain still treats social rejection or embarrassment as an actual threat. When you step outside your comfort zone, your brain is interpreting that as danger. Your amygdala is saying, don't stand out, you might get judged. Don't make a mistake, they'll think you're not good enough. And it triggers that fight, flight, or freeze response. And in modern life, that can look like procrastination, it can look like perfectionism, over-preparing, self-doubt. But the good news is that prefrontal cortex, which is a rational part of your brain, can override those fears. But it's only when you bring awareness to what's happening that you can start separating the facts from your feelings. Now, imposter syndrome doesn't look the same for everybody, and researchers have identified a few common types that show up again and again. So we've got the perfectionist. Now, the perfectionist sets unrealistically high goals. It feels like a failure if they fall short of those goals, and they focus on what went wrong instead of what went right. And even a small mistake can feel like proof that they're not good enough. Then you've got the expert. The expert feels like they need to know absolutely everything before they can start or speak up. They collect qualifications, training, courses, but they very rarely feel ready to use them because there's always more to learn. You've got the natural genius. Now, the natural genius believes that things should come easy, and that's often because they've been naturally good at things in the past. So when they hit something that's a bit of a learning curve, it feels like a failure. And if it takes effort or struggle, then it means that you're not really capable of it. Then we've got the superhuman. The superhuman constantly pushes themselves to work harder, to achieve more, to prove that they can juggle everything perfectly. They often overwork, over-deliver, push themselves to the limit to prove that they deserve that success. But the problem is that pace isn't sustainable, and they measure value by how much they do. Then we've got the soloist. Now, the soloist feels like they have to do everything on their own to prove their worth. They take on more and more and juggle everything to prove they can handle everything, even when they're absolutely exhausted. And asking for help, a soloist feels like they're admitting a weakness, and accepting that help makes them feel less capable. But that's not the case. They're not less capable. They're human. And you may see yourself in a number of these different types of imposter syndrome. I certainly do for myself. So there's me. Time for some honesty from me. And those that know me will know that imposter syndrome plays a big part in my life, and it has done for as long as I can remember, in various types and in various parts of my life as well. Even before I knew it had a name, even before I knew it was imposter syndrome, I've always had that little voice of doubt. So a few examples from me. When I started sharing health and wellness content on my social media, I remember feeling a bit like a fraud, because I was thinking, who am I to talk about healthy habits when I don't have it all figured out, and I sometimes enjoy a few biscuits. Even if I had a day if I had a day when I didn't eat perfectly, I felt like I'd failed, and I wouldn't mention it at all. And I've realised over time that health isn't about being perfect, it's about balance and progress. So it took me a while to realise it, but being honest about those ups and downs, and being honest when I have a biscuit or an ice cream or a pizza, makes that journey more relatable, and it doesn't make it less credible at all. Then another example is achieving things in business. So in the network marketing businesses that I've been in over the last 20 years, I've achieved multiple things: holidays, cash bonuses, experiences, awards. Even 20 years ago, when I first started in my network marketing career, if it was announced on stage that I'd won something, my response was always, "You sure? Have you worked that out right?" Instead of being proud of the achievement, I'd think, they're soon going to realise that I'm not as good as they think I am. And it didn't matter how many things I achieved or how much evidence I had of past achievements to prove to myself that I was capable, that internal voice always found a way to question it. And then another one is when thinking about something new, like these episodes, that feeling sneaks in that I didn't know enough. I wasn't ready. Somebody else could do it better than me. And I remember thinking, who am I to be talking about mindset and confidence when I'm working on it personally anyway? And I've been doing it for such a long time. There's people with more qualifications, with a bigger following, with more experience. There's me sitting in Wednesbury with a notebook and a head full of ideas, wondering if anybody had actually listened to me. But I did it anyway. And the messages and the feedback that I got after those initial sessions showed me that people actually related. And it was because I wasn't pretending to have it all figured out. It was because I was being honest. The realisation that imposter syndrome doesn't mean that you're not capable. It means that you're human and that you care about doing something and doing something well. It means you're doing something brave. It means you're stepping outside your comfort zone. Instead of letting others hold you back, it's a sign that you're growing. And that's when you can start to challenge it. So if you've never felt a little bit out of your depth, then you're probably not stretching yourself enough. So imposter syndrome doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's usually triggered by situations or changes that make us feel exposed or uncertain or out of our depth. One of the biggest triggers is starting something new, whether that's a new job, business, learning a new skill. The moment you step outside your comfort zone, this little voice whispers to you, you're not ready for this. Another big one is comparison, especially in the age of social media, like I mentioned earlier. Seeing other people's success makes you question your own, even when you're doing brilliantly in your own lane. Praise or recognition can actually be a trigger. It sounds a little bit strange, but when somebody compliments you, your brain can panic and think, what if I can't live up to that compliment? Then there's high expectations, and high expectations are either from others or from yourself. You feel more pressure to be perfect, and it's easier to believe that you're falling short of things. And past experience can play a role as well. And that's moments where you've been made to feel not good enough. They leave a lasting imprint, and they resurface when you're facing something new. It's key to remember that these triggers aren't signs that you're not capable. It's reminders that you're growing, and growth always feels a little bit uncomfortable to start off with. Imposter syndrome isn't always born from our own thoughts. Sometimes it's shaped by the way other people make you feel. It can come from an offhand comment or a subtle dig or a moment where somebody's underestimated you or talks down to you. Maybe a friend makes a joke that hits too close to home, or somebody questions your ability or your choices or your success. And sometimes it's not even what they say, it's their tone, it's that raised eyebrow, it's the energy behind what they're saying. And over time, them small moments plant seeds of doubt. You start to internalise them seeds of doubt, and you wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you're not capable as you thought. And before you know it, those external opinions start to become your inner voice. The fact is, other people's words stick, especially if you're feeling insecure or unsure in the first place. Just because somebody doesn't see your worth doesn't mean it's not there. Just because somebody's projecting their own insecurities onto you doesn't make them your truth. Maybe they didn't understand your goal, or maybe your confidence makes them feel uncomfortable. Either way, the perception that they've got of you is not your problem to fix. You can't always control what people say, do, or think, but you can control whether or not you let it affect you. Opinions only hold power if you give them permission to. And this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, I think, is fantastic. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So the next time somebody makes you question yourself, then pause and remind yourself that it's their opinion and it doesn't define you. Your belief defines you. Imposter syndrome can start with that seed of doubt, but your confidence starts with the decision to stop letting other people's voices speak louder than your own. Now, one of the most simple but powerful tools that you can use when dealing with imposter syndrome is to name the voice in your head. That voice that's telling you that you're not good enough, you're not ready, or you're not deserving, you need to give it a name. When you give it a name, you're creating distance between you and the thought, and it becomes something separate. It's a character rather than a core part of who you are. So it could be negative Nelly, doubting Doris, cautious Carl, nervous Nigel. Loads of different things. But giving it a name makes it less intimidating, and you can literally say, thanks for your input, Nell, or I've got this one. It sounds really silly, but psychologically it actually works. It helps your brain recognise that it's not factual, it's protective. By naming it, you can take your power back, and you stop reacting automatically to that voice, and you can start responding intentionally. Courage doesn't mean that you're silencing that voice. It just means that you're learning to move forward in spite of it. If you've been on previous episodes, you know I love a good reframe. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, Reframing is one of the most powerful tools you can use again. When you reframe something, you stop seeing imposter syndrome as proof that you don't belong, and you start recognizing it as evidence that you are growing beyond where you've been before. So if that little voice is saying that you're not ready, it's not an enemy, it's your comfort zone saying, oh, this is new. Feeling discomfort doesn't mean that you're faking it. It means you're expanding. It means you're learning. It means you care about what it is you're doing. So you need to try and flip it when these thoughts show up. So instead of I don't know enough, say to yourself, I'm learning as I go. Instead of I don't belong here, try I'm becoming the person who does belong here. Think about it this way. Butterflies and nerves feel almost identically the same in your body. The story that you tell yourself decides which one it is. So reframing takes the fear out of it and transforms anxious energy into excitement, and it signals that you are leveling up and growing. So next time that inner critic pops up with a "you're faking it" message in your head, then pause, take a breath, and smile to yourself. You're not faking it. You're becoming that person. Start seeing imposter syndrome as not a stop sign, but a green light. It's not there to block your path. It's there to remind you that you are moving forward. The way you talk to yourself either fuels or fights imposter syndrome. So your inner voice plays a huge role in whether you feel capable or not. If you're constantly saying things like, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, then you're going to start believing it. That voice isn't fact, it's just habit. It's an echo of old fears, past criticism, self-doubt. And your brain believes what it hears most often. If that inner dialogue is harsh and critical, then imposter syndrome has a lot to feed on. If you start changing that tone, even just a little bit, then things can start to change. Try talking to yourself in a way that you would talk to a friend who's struggling. You wouldn't say to that friend, well, you're not qualified for that. Oh, you don't belong here. You'd say, you've worked so hard for this. You'd say, you've earned your place. That self-talk sets the emotional tone for everything. When that voice becomes more understanding, imposter syndrome loses its grip on you. And confidence doesn't come from other people telling you that you're capable. It starts the moment that you begin to speak to yourself like you actually believe the things that you're saying. So something that might surprise you, almost everyone has felt like an imposter at some point. It's not just you or me or people who are starting out with something new. We tend to think that confident people are born that way and that they never doubt themselves, that they stroll into every room without fear, but it's not true. Even the most successful people feel like they don't belong sometimes. Adele, she's admitted that before every single performance, she's terrified that people might realise she's not as talented as they think she is. Maya Angelou, she wrote multiple bestsellers. And after that, she once said that she worries that people would find her out. Tom Hanks, one of the most loved and respected actors, he said he often feels like a fraud. Lady Gaga has said that she sometimes feels like an imposter who just got lucky. Albert Einstein, he once described himself as an involuntary swindler. He said that he felt that his work didn't deserve the attention that it got. And Michelle Obama, she's spoken about walking into rooms full of powerful people thinking, am I good enough to be here? So the people that we often see as icons, strong, talented, accomplished people, but that voice still creeps in. And the difference isn't that they never feel it, it's learned that they've learned to do it anyway. They've realised that feeling like an imposter isn't a stop sign, it's just a sign that they're doing something meaningful. So if you've ever thought, who am I to be doing this? You're in very good company there. Even the most confident person that you admire, they've all doubted themselves at some point. They've felt nervous, but they've showed up regardless. That's the key. Confidence isn't waiting until the fear disappears. It's taking a step while the fear is still there. Confidence doesn't come before you do a thing. Confidence comes because you did the thing anyway, despite the fear that may have been there. So imposter syndrome isn't something that just disappears one day. It still shows up for me, just in different ways now. Sometimes before we launch something new, or when I'm planning one of these sessions, or there's a little voice in my head that just whispers, who's going to listen? If I get a message with a bit of praise or a well done for a session or for something that I've done with work, the first instinct for me is still to brush it off. But it's not always. I can look back now and see how far I've come in quietening that voice. And a great example was when I won a trip to South Africa at the beginning of this year. It was one of those moments where I genuinely didn't question it. I didn't feel like an imposter. I knew deep down that I'd earned it. I'd worked hard, I'd stayed consistent, and I'd made it happen. And for once, I let myself truly enjoy it. And that's growth in itself, allowing pride instead of doubt. Before, I would have said, are you sure you worked that out right? So when I upload episodes to YouTube, there's a little voice that still sometimes says, there's not thousands of people watching. Does it even matter if I do it? Then I remember people are watching. The numbers might not be in the hundreds or the thousands yet, but real people are watching and they're taking something from it and they're coming back every single episode. And that means it is making a difference to people. The reality of imposter syndrome is that it doesn't disappear, but you learn to recognise it and you can choose to act differently. So now when that voice appears, I can smile and say, there you are again, and keep going anyway. Because it's not about never feeling it again. It's about understanding that imposter syndrome is just fear in disguise. And every time I've felt it, I've carried on anyway, and I've grown as a person, as a leader, and in confidence. And feeling like an imposter doesn't mean that I don't belong. It means that I'm expanding and growing. So if that little voice pops up to you and says you can't do this, smile and say, yeah, watch me. Now, you know, I always end with a quote. So as you read that quote, I really want you to think about it, because that's what this whole session has been about. You're not faking it. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're growing into the version of yourself that you've been working towards all along. So every new challenge, every wobble, every moment of self-doubt is shaping you into that person. One who's confident enough to show up, one who's brave enough to keep going, one who's self-aware enough to recognise that growth never feels comfortable. So next time imposter syndrome whispers, you're not ready for this, remind yourself that you're not an imposter, you're in progress. And that's exactly where you're meant to be. So the next session, we're going to build even further on what we've covered in the last couple of episodes. Once you start to work on self-confidence and self-belief, you start to act with a little bit more bravery and you put yourself out there more, and that's where these imposter feelings can come in. And hopefully now you can start to recognise those feelings for what they are. The next step is then learning how to understand and manage the emotions that sit underneath the feelings. So that's what emotional intelligence is all about. And it's about becoming more aware of what you're feeling, of why you're feeling it, and how to use that awareness to stay calm and confident and connected, even when the inner critic is taking over. So if tonight has helped you notice the imposter voice, then the next session will help you handle it. So that's 2 weeks' time, same time, 7:30, same place, on Zoom, and then uploaded to the YouTube channel afterwards. If you have any questions at all, as always, you've got my email address and my Facebook profile, my Facebook page, and the website too. So don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. drop me a like and a comment on there. And if you haven't already, then head over to that website and grab your free ebook, Mastering Your Mindset and Unlocking Your Confidence. And the last thing for me to say is thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to see some nice faces on here, and I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Bye bye.